Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. It is your host, Christina Jolly, and I am glad that you're here. If this is your very first time, welcome to the podcast. I'm actually going to ask you to actually go back to last week's podcast because this is going to be a continuation to something I wanted to talk a little bit further about. Last week, I spoke on peace, being at peace with God, yourself, and other people. And so I really want to focus today on the peace part of living at peace with other people. It's possible. Some of you may be saying, I don't know, Christina. So that's where I want to pick up this week. And, when we truly live at peace with the Lord, with ourselves, and with other people, man, we can live a really, really great life. And far too many of us focus on trying to change other people. We focus on trying to make sure that somebody is doing what we want them to do when we realize when and and some of us still don't realize that we can't control people. I said in the last podcast, people be people, and that is so true. And what ends up happening is when we try to change people, when we try to get people to do what we want them to do, can I just tell you, it leads to manipulation, it leads to exhaustion, it leads to you having to do like your own effort. It's like self effort. Everything relies on you. It's like you're having to do, um, play like the main part of having to get someone to change versus allowing God to transform someone from the inside out. And so there's a difference between self effort and God's ways and God's effort. And our job when it comes to people is to pray for them and to believe God, right? That God can truly transform someone from the inside out. And many of us, I see this so much, and I've seen this for years. Many of us just really focus on how can I change someone else when really it's not your responsibility and you're not going to be able to change somebody. They have to make the change within themselves, right? And so I'm going to talk on marriage first, and then I'm going to move on to relationships, like family relationships, family dynamics. First and foremost, I my husband and I will be married for 7 years this coming October. And one of the very first things that my husband did tell me early on in our relationship, and I honestly I didn't know what he meant about it, or what he meant when he said it, but he did say, Christina, I don't want to change you, but I want to change how you live. And at that time, I didn't fully understand what he meant. Change how I live? You don't want to change me, but you want to change how I live? What does that mean? You know? And as time has gone on, I realized that my husband was coming from a very good place. He really just wanted to change my environment. He wanted to change the things that I have been exposed to. He wanted to change my way of living each and every day and honestly elevate that living, and really get me to see that there's other ways of doing things versus how I grew up and what I knew, right? And so again, he was not trying to change who I was as a person. That was never Tim's goal, right? His goal was to change the way that I lived my everyday life. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm really grateful for the change that came in the way that I live my everyday life because I don't live the same way that I used to live. And it's a good thing. It's really, really a good thing. And so I truly had to get into alignment with what the Word of God said about my life and how I lived, right? And so, when we think about God's ways and the way that He wants us to accept one another, I want to read to you Romans chapter 15 and verse 7. It says, therefore, continue to accept and welcome one another, just as Christ has accepted and welcomed us to the glory of our great God. The word accept, meaning with open arms, you're going to accept one another and not try to change them. It doesn't say accept them if they do this, accept them if, they check off all of these boxes. No, it says to accept them just as Christ has accepted you, right? We all have flaws. We all have things that, you know what, we really truly need to work on, each and every one of us. Me too, I'm no exception. But to truly accept someone for who they are, again, you're not trying to change that person. One thing that I've been um, accepting of is my husband and the way he is. And there are certain things that my husband does not care to do. I don't force him to do things. I always give my husband a choice. I'll give you a pet peeve of his is if we go out to eat as a family, in his mind, if you're inviting people to go out and to eat as a family, he does not understand that everybody pays for their own meals. In his mind, he thinks if we invited them, then we should pay for them. And I'm talking about like a whole lot of our family, not just another couple or, one or two people. I'm talking about everybody. And so early on in our marriage, that was something that he couldn't understand. And in my family and the way that I grew up, we were just responsible for our own meals. And it was really hard for us to accept the gesture of somebody wanting to pay. It just wasn't in our mindset, right? That somebody wanted to be generous enough. I invited you. We're coming together to celebrate a birthday or an anniversary or whatever it might be. And that was something that was really, really difficult for him. And a couple of times he did it, and then the other people in my family felt somewhat offended by that. And so over time, I think my husband has gotten just the point of, this is just how we've grown up and this is how we've done it. Not that his gesture doesn't go unnoticed. And there are times where when we do get together, we've done it many times for my daughter's birthday. We've just said, you know what, we're going to go ahead and take care of everything. And again, we can't choose how people are going to respond to it, right? But at the same time, we have to just respect people and how, they choose to look at that whole situation. And so, there have been many times when I've been invited to different things, especially within, again, my family, different celebrations. And again, my husband did not grow up the same way that I did. If you are from my culture, you're Hispanic, you know that we get together and we celebrate everything and everyone's birthday. That's just something that we do. Well, my husband did not grow up that way and just didn't live a life where like a birthday is a big deal, you know? And so when we decide to get together and celebrate someone's birthday, that is something that I always give my husband a choice of. I give him a choice to join us. I let him know what we're doing. I let him know where we're going. I let him know who's going to be there. And then he can decide whether or not he wants to join us. And guess what? I'm not mad. I'm not offended. If he decides to say, you know what, Christina, nah, I don't want to go. If I've given him the choice, I have to be okay with whatever he decides. Instead of trying to manipulate, trying to persuade, trying to convince him to join us, that's not my job, right? If I'm going to accept my husband for who he is and how God has made him, I have to accept the choices that he makes and not get upset, right? And so that's something that I feel like brings a lot of peace in our marriage because I'm not trying to change him. I know what he likes and what he doesn't like, what he cares to join and what he just does not care to join. And that's okay. again, I'm not trying to change him, right? And so I've just seen so many women in marriages who just go over the top and do everything that they can to manipulate their spouse, to get them to try to do what they want them to do. And all I'm going to tell you is that it's effort. You get so tired of doing that. It's like, it's too much. And then you're not at peace. And so the goal is to live at peace with other people and then be at peace with yourself. And so if you're trying to manipulate, if you're trying to get your spouse to do something that they clearly do not want to be a part of or don't want to do, and it's their choice, you have to allow that. It's again, it's a choice on your end whether or not you want to even allow that on your end, right? Or do you want to just continue to live by effort, continue to be tired, exhausted, and realize that, the true transformation for someone, this is in every person. It starts with the inside out. What does God tell us in 1 Samuel 16:7? That people look at deeds, but God looks at the heart. How do you know someone has fully changed? It's a change in their heart posture. I'm going to say that again. How do you know someone has fully changed? It's a change in their heart posture. So, in other words, the change comes from the inside out. When you look at that person and you see the change, it starts inside themselves first. And you can try to do everything you can do to try to move that process along, you know. But again, it's self effort. And I've just seen too many women who are they're exhausted. There's no joy in their spirit because they're too busy trying to change their spouse when clearly their spouse does not want to change, is not at that point yet. I'm not saying it's not possible, but they're just not there yet, right? It's like, we've all heard this story, and I'm sure you know somebody who, their spouse, maybe you had a friend where they wanted their spouse to attend church. This is pretty common, right? And they constantly tell their spouse, are you going to church with me? And the spouse says, no, not this week. Okay, next week comes around. Are you going to church with me? You really should go. I mean, we're doing a whole series on, blah, blah, blah. The pastor's talking about this. Do you want to go? No. The next week, same thing. Are you going to go to church with me? No. Well, you really should. So and so was asking for you. They've been asking for you. They've been wondering why you haven't been to church. Do you want to go to church? Spouse says, no. So what do? We continue to nag. We continue to manipulate. We continue to just try to get them to see that they need to go to church, right? Instead, leaving it up to them, asking them one time, would you like to go to church with me? Accepting their response and being okay with that. And then instead of focusing on them, right? Focusing on why your spouse isn't going to church with you, God, you really need to do something. You need to bring him back to the house of the Lord. Instead of the focus being on them, we need to shift that focus to be on yourself. Allow God to fully start to transform you. And then guess what? This is the secret. When God starts to do the transformation in you, your spouse will see the change in you and wonder what's going on with them. Like they've changed. They got a spring in their step. They've got joy in their heart. They're not bothered anymore that I'm not going to church with them. She asked me one time this week and she didn't continue to nag. She didn't continue to beg me to go to church. You see how there's a shift there? And then your spouse will in turn For the most part. I'm not going to say that it goes like this all the time, but I've seen this time and time again. When the transformation starts in you as the wife, I'm speaking to the wives here, your husband will look at you and say, man, there's just something different about her. What is it? It's the power of the Holy Spirit. We know that, right? When God starts to change you, your heart, you start to have joy. You start to be at peace regardless of what's going on. And that's another thing, is that we have to be and live at peace regardless of what is going on in our lives. Whether your child is acting like a fool or you and your spouse are mad about something, you have to choose peace. You choose joy daily. And so and I've known, real life stories where eventually the transformation starts within the wife, the husband takes notice, and therefore he becomes interested, right? Because we've stopped nagging, we've stopped bugging them, we've stopped trying to manipulate them to come to church. Just something I've seen, something I've been a witness to time and time again. So let's move on to family relationships, because this is the part where I've had to learn the hard way. Because family relationships, excuse me, and family dynamics are never easy. They just aren't, right? You're talking about a lot of personalities, a lot of history with that person. And again, wanting to get people to see, excuse me, your point of view, your way of thinking, your way of doing things. Again, it leads to manipulation. It leads to having expectations of people that they surely cannot meet. So I personally have been let down by close family members who I wanted them to see something a certain way. The truth was right there. The facts were right there. And yet they chose to see it another way. And no matter how I presented, the information, they chose to say, no, I don't really see it that way. I don't really agree with you. And it's like everybody around you is like, this is how they see this. And in my mind, because I've been just as guilty, if I could just convince them, if I can get them to see it the way that I see it, they would be better off. They would be at more peace if they could truly see the situation for what it is, right? And again, I can't change people. I can't get them to change their mind. I can present information, but at the end of the day, they have to come up with their own conclusion and their own, rationale in their mind of why they see things the way they do. And again, that's something that I had to learn with my own family. And my husband, I think he really just got tired of seeing me be disappointed, tired of seeing me be upset about it, tired of seeing me just like, Christina, you can't change them and you can't get them to see the things the way that you want them to see it. Again, people are people. And you can't, like get upset when they see things in this certain way. And so after a couple of years of just, you know what? I just allowed them to let them be who they are. And it's not my responsibility to change them. It's not my responsibility to get them to see things a certain way. Now that takes maturity, my friends. And I didn't get there overnight. And it's something that I definitely had to learn the hard way, because it was stealing my joy. It was stealing my peace. It was stealing my just my acceptance of who that person is and what they can give and what they can put out in the world. Like, I just had to come to the realization that people are people. If you've never read that book, and it's not necessarily a Christian book, but there's a book by Mel Robbins, And it's called, let's see if I can pull it up. This book really just helped me. Um, just see people for who they are. It's called The Let Them Theory. And it's by Mel Robbins. And again, she's not a Christian author or anything like that, but I've enjoyed listening to her, and that book really helped me to really let people be who they are, right? First part of the let them theory is like you let them be who they are. You let them choose whatever they want to choose. You allow people to be who they are, true in true format, right? And then you let yourself, like that choice of not taking on that responsibility of their decisions, their actions, the things that they do or don't do. It's like it doesn't fall on you. You know what I mean? So that's something that I truly had to learn again, like the hard way, and realize that I can't change people. As much as I want to, as much as I think I can't. And so I just have to let people be people. So, my friends, I hope this blessed you because it's something that I see quite a bit. And when I like to observe people, relationships, behaviors, and when we allow people just to be who they are and accept them for who they are, we save ourselves a lot of time and effort and energy that, you know what, at the end of the day, it's like, is it worth you trying to continue to try to do something? It's like you're on the little hamster wheel and you're trying to get somebody to do something, and it's like the end result is going to be the same, and you know that. It's time to get off that hamster wheel and just accept people for who they are, right? And not everybody is going to be able to live up to your expectations. And sometimes your expectations are a little unrealistic, right? And so you may have to bring it down a notch and just accept people for who they are. I hope this blessed you. I know some of you really needed to hear this today. And my friends, God is so good, and don't allow people to steal your joy, your peace within yourself. Like you just got to keep it moving. Like you just got to, regardless of what's going on, regardless of how someone is treating you, regardless of the situation, like I am choosing joy each and every day, regardless. And that, again, it's a choice. My friends, have a good week. God is good, and you are so blessed.